Her bare feet never left the floorboard, even when they called $60. The rope burns were still fresh on her wrists, red against skin gone pale as winter. 43 men watched from the crowd, some leaning forward, most looking at the floor like she did. She'd found a knot in the oak, third plank from the left, and decided that knot was the whole world now. Not the voices, not the hands, just the whirl of wood grain, brown and black and safe because it couldn't hurt her. 60, Marshal Hatch called. Do I hear 65? The door opened. Dust followed Silas Kern inside, coating his hat, his shoulders. He stopped, looked up, saw her there, naked, silent, gone. 75, he said. The room went quiet. Sold to Silas Kern. She didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe different. He paid Marshal Hatch in bills worn soft from carrying, then walked out into the sun. Behind him, she followed. Because things follow when you own them. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Kern's gone soft." The door closed. The knot disappeared. She followed him to the wagon like a dog follows a chain. Close enough to obey, far enough to bolt. The seat was wood. He climbed up, took the reins, didn't look back to see if she'd gotten in. She hadn't. She stood in the street, bare feet in dust, watching the mesa line where the land met sky. "You can sit up here," he said. She didn't move. "Suit yourself?" He clicked his tongue. The horse started. She grabbed the wagon's edge and pulled herself into the bed, staying low, staying far from him. Her hands found splinters in the wood. Good. Pain meant real. Pain meant still here. The town disappeared behind them. 45 minutes of nothing but hoof fall, and that windmill sound somewhere ahead, metal on metal, squeaking like something dying slow. Red mesas rose up on both sides, shadows stretching long in the late sun. A dust devil crossed the road, spinning itself to death. Alma watched the man's shoulders, tight, jaw set hard. He kept glancing left toward a particular mesa, the one with the flat top. Something up there mattered to him. Someone, maybe. His hands on the reins were rope-scarred, like hers. They passed an old Apache on an Appaloosa. The Indian looked at Silas, nodded once, then his eyes found Alma in the wagon bed and held there. Not like the men at the auction. Not looking at her body, looking at her face, seeing her. She'd forgotten what that felt like. The ranch came into view as the sun touched the horizon. Adobe cabin, small and square. Barn, bigger than the house. Corral, windmill, that screaming metal sound louder now. Everything looked like it had given up trying. Silas stopped the wagon. Barn or house? Alma's fingers went tight on the wagon edge. This was a test. Had to be. Say house? He'd expect things. Say barn? He'd drag her to the house anyway. That's how it worked. "I'm asking," he said. She looked at his back. Still hadn't turned around. Barn. He nodded like she'd just told him the weather. Climbed down, walked to the barn, opened the doors wide. Waited. She got out of the wagon, walked past him, not close, giving him room to grab her if that's what this was. He didn't. Inside, hay smell, horse smell, leather smell. Clean water bucket hanging from a post. Saddle blanket folded on a barrel. He came back with his arms full, bread, jerky, canteen, set them on the barrel, pulled the work blanket off, shook it out, hung it over the stall rail. "What do you want from me?" First words she'd spoken since Missouri. Her voice came out wrong, too rough, like she'd been screaming. "Nothing tonight." He walked out, didn't lock the door, didn't even close it all the way. Alma waited, counted to 100. Went to the door, pushed it, it opened. No lock, no bolt, no chain. She could run right now. Steal the horse, ride north, die in the desert probably, but die free. She closed the door instead. Sat on the hay, stared at the bread. Night came cold. Through the gaps in the barnwood, she could see the cabin. Lamplight in the window. He was doing something with a match. Lifting glass, adjusting the wick. Methodical. Like prayer. He sat at the table. One chair, one plate. He didn't eat. Just sat there, staring at the empty space across from him. She watched him for an hour. He never moved, except to turn his head toward something in the corner. A chair, maybe? Draped with something. He looked at it like it was looking back. "Margaret," he said to the nothing. "I don't know what I'm doing." His voice carried in the cold. Alma pressed her face against the wood slats. He wasn't like the others. The others had been loud, grabbing, full of want. This man was empty, hollowed out. Whatever had been inside him was gone, and he was just moving through the motions of living because stopping would mean admitting it. She knew that feeling. Had been drowning in it since they sold her the first time. The bread was still on the barrel. She picked it up. It was soft, fresh. He'd gone into town before the auction and bought bread. For her, maybe. Or maybe he always bought bread on Wednesdays, and today just happened to be the day he bought a woman. She ate it slow. First food in 3 days that didn't taste like fear. The horse in the next stall, a roan with a white star, turned its head toward her. She reached out, touched its nose. Warm, soft. It didn't pull away. Outside, coyotes started up their song. The windmill kept squeaking. The stars came out so thick they looked like snow that wouldn't fall. She lay down in the hay, blanket pulled up to her chin, one hand on the barn door, just in case. But somewhere between midnight and dawn, her eyes closed and stayed closed, because exhaustion finally beat caution, and the door stayed unlocked, and he never came. 3 days passed before she spoke more than 2 words, and he never asked for more. Day 1, she stayed in the barn. He left a plate outside the door at dawn. Eggs, biscuit, coffee, and a tin cup. She waited until his footsteps faded before cracking the door. The food was still warm. Day 2, same. Except this time she watched through the slats as he worked the corral, mending a section of fence the wind had worried loose. His movements were methodical, wasting nothing. When he straightened up and wiped his brow, he glanced toward the barn. Not at it, just toward it. Then back to work. Day 3, she ate the eggs on the barrel inside, cup in both hands for the warmth. Day 4, she opened the door while he was there. Stood in the frame, 1 foot still inside. He nodded, kept hammering. She watched for 5 minutes, then went back in. He didn't follow. Day 5, she walked out to where the chickens scratched in the dust. One was limping. She crouched down slow, picked it up, felt along its leg, splinter. She worked it out with her thumbnail. Set the bird down. It clucked once and went back to pecking. When she turned, he was 10 feet away, holding a water bucket. "Good eye," he said. She didn't answer. Went back to the barn. Day 7, the cold came. She woke to frost on the inside of the barn door, her breath visible in the lamplight. The work blanket wasn't enough. She wrapped it tighter and shivered anyway. At noon, he appeared in the doorway. "Storm tonight? Barn's drafty." "When?" She looked at him, then passed him toward the cabin. "There's a storage room," he said. "It's small, but it's warm. And the door's got a lock on the inside." "Inside lock, not outside. I'll show you." She followed him across the yard. Inside the cabin, 1 main room, stone fireplace, table with 2 chairs, though one had a coat draped over the back. In the corner, a rocking chair covered with a sheet, like furniture in a house where someone died. The storage room was barely big enough for a cot. Clean blanket folded at the foot, water pitcher, small window facing east. "It's yours if you want it," he said. "No obligation." That night, the storm hit. Wind screamed through every crack in the cabin. She lay on the cot, listening to him move around in the main room, banking the fire, checking the windows, settling into his chair with a sound like defeat. She heard him speak once. "Cold one, Margaret," like the year you were born. Margaret. The ghost had a name now. Week 2, a routine formed without either of them naming it. He woke before dawn, made coffee, left her cup on the table. She emerged when she heard the door close behind him. Ate standing up at first, then sitting, then staying at the table after she finished, watching the sunrise through the window. One morning, she found him at the corral, struggling with a yearling calf tangled in wire. She climbed the fence, grabbed the calf's head, held it still while he cut. The animal bucked free, ran off bawling. They stood there breathing hard, wire scratched, not looking at each other. "Thank you," he said. She nodded, went back inside. That afternoon, a chicken got loose from the coop, the same limping one she'd fixed. It bolted past the cabin, feathers flying. Silas came around the corner, saw it, broke into a run. Alma came out, saw him chasing a chicken like a fool, and before she could stop it, a sound came out of her mouth. Laughter, small, rusty, but real. He stopped running, looked at her, almost smiled, didn't. Went back to chasing. She helped corner it by the barn. They both stood there, covered in dust and feathers, and she felt her mouth trying to remember what a smile was. "Reckon that bird's got more sense than both of us," he said. "Reckon so." 3 words, the most she'd given him. That evening, Chief Running Bear appeared on foot, silent as weather. He had a cloth bundle, herbs for rope burns, he said. Pressed it into Alma's hands, looked at Silas. "Town's asking questions." "Let them ask." "Marshall says you stole property. Can't steal what ain't meant to be owned." Chief's eyes moved between them. He nodded once, as if confirming something, then he was gone. That night, Alma heard Silas through the thin wall. She asked why. Couldn't tell her the truth, that I'm trying to fix what I broke with you. She pressed her hand against the wall. On the other side, silence. Then the creak of his chair. In the morning, she looked at the rocking chair in the corner. Really looked. Saw the care with which the sheet was draped. This wasn't furniture. It was a shrine. "Need to go to town tomorrow," he said over coffee. "Supplies. You can stay here." "They'll talk." "Already do," she considered. Every instinct said hide, but hiding meant staying a ghost. "I'll go." He looked up, surprised, then reached into the bedroom, came back with a folded dress. Blue calico, clean. He set it on the table between them. "It's yours if you want it." She picked it up. The fabric was soft, worn in the right places. Someone had loved this dress. Someone taller than her, the hem would drag. Whose? Someone who don't need it no more. She held it against herself. The sleeves were too long. I'll take it. That night she put it on, rolled the sleeves, looked at herself in the dark window glass. The girl looking back was half stranger, half something she used to know. Some ghosts don't need names. Bitter Creek watched them load the wagon like a jury watches a hanging. Silent, certain, already decided. Alma wore the blue dress. The hem dragged in the dust when she climbed up to the bench. Not the wagon bed this time. Progress. Small, but there. Silas clicked his tongue. The horse started. 45 minutes of mesa shadows, and that windmill sound fading behind them. She kept her hands folded in her lap, watching the town grow larger. He kept his eyes on the road, jaw working like he was chewing something bitter. Main Street, empty except for dogs and dust devils. Then the doors opened. People appeared, watched, Mrs. Fenton's store first. The bell chimed when they entered. 3 women at the counter went silent. Mrs. Fenton looked up from her ledger, saw them, and something passed across her face. Pity, maybe, or calculation. Mr. Kern. Polite, cold. What can I help you with? Silas handed her the list. She read it, lips pressed thin. That'll be $7, normally $5. Alma had been in enough stores to know the sound of inflation when she heard it. Silas pulled out the bills. Didn't argue. Much obliged. Outside, a group had gathered. Marshal Hatch at the center, arms crossed, gold watch chain catching the light. Kern. Marshal. Heard you been keeping her out at your place. That's right. She's bought property. You got rights to her, but folks are wondering what you're doing with those rights. Alma felt the stares like brands. Silas stepped slightly in front of her, not blocking, just there. Bought her freedom, not her labor. That ain't how it works. It's how I work. And Silas took the supplies, turned to leave. Reverend Pritchard stepped into his path. Soft hands, softer face, eyes that couldn't quite meet anyone's. Silas, folks are talking. This arrangement, it ain't Christian. Silas stopped. Which part? The talking or the auction? The Reverend's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. That's what I thought. They loaded the wagon in silence. Every person on that street watched, some with judgment, some with something that might have been shame if they'd let it be. Alma climbed up, felt the weight of their stares like stone. On the ride home, neither spoke, but she noticed his hands were white-knuckled on the reins. And when they passed the Mexican family's cluster of adobe houses at the edge of town, an old woman crossed herself and whispered something that sounded like prayer. That night, the cold came hard. Real cold. The kind that finds every crack in a wall and pushes through like a knife. Alma lay on the cot, work blanket pulled to her chin, shivering anyway. Her teeth chattered. She tried to stop them. Couldn't. 2 in the morning, footsteps in the main room. She heard him moving. Then silence. Then his door opening, something heavy being lifted. A pause so long she thought maybe he'd changed his mind. His footsteps to her door. A soft sound, fabric against wood. Then his footsteps retreating. She waited. Counted to 100. Opened the door. A blanket hung on the outside knob. Not the work blanket. This one was thick wool, Navajo pattern, red and black and cream stripes. She pulled it inside, unfolded it. Heavy, warm, smelled like pinion smoke and something older. Memory, maybe? In the corner, embroidered in careful stitches, M.K. Margaret Kern. Alma sat on the cot holding it. This wasn't just a blanket. This was the last thing. The thing he'd kept when he got rid of everything else. The thing he probably wrapped around himself on the worst nights when the empty chair was too loud. Through the wall, she heard him moving back to bed, heard the frame creak under his weight, heard nothing else. She wrapped the blanket around herself, warmth soaked into her bones. Her shivering stopped. In the morning, she found him at the corral, walked out wearing the blanket over the blue dress, stood there until he looked up. She nodded. He nodded back. Turned away fast, like looking at her wrapped in it, hurt something he didn't have words for. That afternoon, Chief Running Bear returned. His face was stone. Marshal, asking questions about ownership papers, says you stole property. Law says she goes back to auction if you don't register proper claim. Won't register her like cattle. And then Law says she's stolen. Chief's eyes moved to Alma. Winter comes, Kern. And winter don't care about your conscience. After he left, Alma stood at the window watching the mesa. Behind her, Silas sat at the table, hands flat on the wood. You heard him, she said. I'm making you a criminal. You ain't doing nothing. Law's doing it. Same result. Silence. The windmill squeaked, rhythm picking up as wind rose. Cold front coming. Had a husband once, she said, not looking at him. Didn't last. Land dispute. His brother shot him, then sold me to cover debts. Said I was payment. Silas's chair scraped. That's evil. That's law. She turned. He was standing now, face carved from something old and angry. You lose someone? She asked. Long silence. So long she thought he wouldn't answer. Yeah. Recent? 3 years feels like yesterday. I'm sorry. Me too. The wind picked up, the cabin creaked. First snow wouldn't be long now. That night, she held the blanket and cried for the first time in 8 months. Not quiet crying, the kind that comes from the bottom of your lungs and tears you open. She pressed her face into the wool to muffle it. Through the wall, she heard his breathing change. Heard him sit up, heard him stand, heard him stop at her door, heard him walk away. Some grief needs to be alone. She found the initials 3 weeks too late and realized she'd been sleeping with a dead girl's blanket, and maybe that's all he wanted. Morning light came through the storage room window, sharp and cold. Alma pulled the blanket tighter, studying it for the first time in daylight. 3 weeks she'd been wrapped in it, and only now did she really look. The embroidery in the corner, MK. Delicate work. Someone had spent hours on those letters, making them perfect. And there, along the edge, a repair in different thread, clumsier stitches, his work, probably. Trying to fix what was broken, she traced the letters with her thumb. Margaret K. something, Margaret Kern, his daughter. The knowing settled in her stomach like swallowed glass. She set the blanket down and went to the barn. Needed air, needed space from that cabin and everything in it that belonged to ghosts. In the corner, old newspapers lined the horse stall for bedding. She pulled one free, smoothed it flat. The date, 3 years ago, November. Her eyes caught on a headline halfway down. Local rancher's daughter dies of cholera. Her hands went still. Margaret Kern, 19, passed away Tuesday at the Kern Ranch while her father, Silas Kern, was away on cattle business. Survived by her father, services held at Bitter Creek Community Church. In lieu of flowers, donations to... Alma read it twice, then 3 times. The dress, the blanket, the rocking chair covered like a corpse, the empty chair at the table, his nighttime confessions to the nothing, while her father was away. She stood up so fast the horse startled, walked across the yard to the cabin, the newspaper crumpled in her fist. He was at the table, coffee gone cold, staring at his hands. Who's Margaret? His head came up slow, saw the paper, saw her face. My daughter. And I'm what? Her voice came out harder than she meant. Your second chance? Your do-over? It ain't like that. Then what's it like? She threw the newspaper on the table. You bought me, dressed me in her clothes, gave me her blanket, put me in your house. What do you want from me? He stood, the chair scraping loud. I don't... What do you want? Nothing. Liar. She was shaking now. Every man wants something. You want me to be her. You want me to fill the hole she left. You want... She died alone. The words came out raw, stopped her cold. Silas's hands were fists at his sides. Storm came, like the one coming now. Got word she was sick, cholera, cattle were 2 days out. I had a choice. Ride by, maybe save her, probably lose the herd, or finish the drive. Save the ranch, hope she'd be fine. His voice cracked. I chose the cattle. Alma's anger faltered, held. What? Told myself she'd be fine, told myself my wife would handle it, told myself I couldn't afford to lose 300 head. He looked at her now, eyes red-rimmed. By the time I got home, she'd been dead 2 days. Wife had to wrap her alone. Wife said her last word was Papa. Silence. Just wind starting to pick up outside. The first warning of the storm chief had promised. Wife left 6 months later. Said I chose money over family. Said I was cold. Said Margaret probably called for me and I never came. His voice broke completely. She was right. Alma stood there holding the newspaper, her rage meeting his pain in the space between them. I didn't buy you to replace her, he said. I bought you because I saw a girl about to suffer, and I couldn't watch it happen again and do nothing. I couldn't choose wrong twice. That's guilt, she said, not kindness. Maybe. He picked up his hat. Don't make it less true. The wind hit the cabin hard enough to rattle the window. The windmill outside screamed. So I'm your absolution? Her hands were shaking. Your way to feel better about letting your daughter die? No, ma'am, you're free. He moved toward the door. You can go. I won't stop you. I'll give you money, a horse, supplies. I won't chase you. Just like that? Just like that. He stopped at the door, looked back at the blanket still on her cot. This ain't about owing. You were cold. That's all it ever was. He walked out into the rising wind. Alma stood in the empty cabin, newspaper still crumpled in her hand. She looked at the blanket, at the covered rocking chair, at the empty space across from where he sat every night. Everything meant something else now. The rescue wasn't mercy, it was penance. The blanket wasn't love, it was grief transferred. The kindness wasn't for her, it was for the ghost of a girl who died calling for her father. And she was never free because freedom don't come from guilt. Outside, the windmill shrieked like something dying. The storm was close now. She could smell it. Ozone and ice and the particular emptiness of snow. She could leave, right now. Take the horse, take the money he'd give her, ride north to Chief's people, disappear into the reservation where law didn't reach, and white men's papers meant nothing. First thought, run. Second thought, where to? Third thought, maybe guilt's not the worst reason to be kind. She picked up the blanket, held it to her face. It still smelled like pinion smoke. Still smelled like the work he'd put into trying to mend it. Still smelled like 3 years of a father who couldn't let go. She folded it carefully, set it on the rocking chair. Not on her cot, not on his chair, but on Margaret's, like an offering, like a question. If I'm not your daughter and I'm not your absolution, then what am I? The wind answered with a howl. The first snow started falling, fat flakes that meant serious business. The kind of snow that could kill you if you weren't careful. The kind that trapped you with whoever you were with and made you face whatever you'd been avoiding. No winter, they'd said. The whole town had been certain. They'd been wrong about that too. The blizzard came the same night she decided to leave. Like the land itself wanted to trap them together. Morning after the fight, silence thick enough to choke on. Alma stayed in the storage room, packing what little she had. The work dress, a piece of bread, the canteen. Her hands shook, not from cold, from the knowing that once she walked out that door, she'd be alone again. Property again, nothing again. Silas sat at the table, coffee untouched, staring at the blanket she'd left on Margaret's chair. Neither spoke for 3 hours. At noon, the snow started. Not gentle, not the kind that makes the world quiet and soft. The kind that erases the world. Within an hour, visibility was nothing. Within 2, the temperature dropped so fast the cabin walls cracked from the shift. Silas stood, looked out the window. Cattle. They'd freeze without shelter. The near pasture was a quarter-mile away. In the storm, might as well be 10. Alma watched him pull on his coat. Watched him hesitate at the door. He was going alone. He'd die alone. Just like Margaret. She could let him. Could take the horse while he was gone. Be halfway to the reservation before he froze to death in the white. Or... She grabbed Margaret's dress, the warmest thing she had, pulled it over her own. Put on the boots he'd left by the door. Went to the barn. He found her there, getting stalls ready. Didn't say anything. Just grabbed a rope and headed into the white. She followed. The wind tried to tear them apart. The cold tried to stop their lungs. The snow tried to blind them. They found the cattle huddled together, already half buried. Started moving them back, one at a time, sometimes 2. Lost sight of each other twice. Found each other by sound, shouting each other's names into the scream. An hour in, Alma slipped. Went down hard in a drift. Couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't find up. Hands grabbed her. Pulled her out, Silas, face ice-crusted, eyes wild. He held her shoulders until she nodded. I'm okay. Then let go fast, like touching her burned. They got 17 cattle to the barn. 3 were already gone. Frozen shapes in the white. Collapsed inside, both soaked through, both shaking so hard their teeth clattered. The cattle's body heat helped, but not enough. Silas's lips were blue. Alma's fingers wouldn't bend. Why'd you stay? His voice came out cracked. Figured you'd die. Would have been easier. For who? Silence. Just wind howling, cattle breathing, their own lungs trying to remember how. You really think I'm her? Alma's voice barely made it across the stall. No. Then what? Silas stared at the barn roof. Snow found every crack, drifted down like ash. I think you're the person I should have been for her. Long pause. Too long. Want to know the truth? He said. She waited. Storm came 3 years ago, like this one. Got word Margaret was sick, real sick. Cattle were 2 days out, but I could have ridden back. Foreman said go. Said he'd handle the drive. Said my daughter needed me. His hands were fists in his lap. I told him no. Told him I couldn't risk it. Cattle were worth 3 years of mortgage payments. If we lost them, we'd lose the ranch. Told myself she'd be fine. Told myself it was just a fever. Alma's breath caught. Rode back 2 days later with money in my pocket and a dead daughter in the ground. Wife said Margaret called for me for 6 hours straight before she stopped talking. Said her last word was Papa. Said she died reaching for the door, like maybe I'd come through it. His voice shattered. So I didn't buy you to replace her. I bought you because I saw a girl about to suffer, and this time I could do something. This time I could choose right. That's still about her. I know. He looked at her finally. And I'm sorry. You deserve better than being somebody's second chance. Alma's eyes burned. My husband died, protecting me. His brother shot him in the yard. I watched. Brother sold me the next day to pay for the land. Said I was the debt. Silas listened. Every man after treated me like a thing, even you, for a while. But you asked. Barn or house? Nobody asks things. Her voice broke. You ain't a good man, Kern, but you're trying. That's more than most. The blanket was still wrapped around the supplies. She reached for it, pulled it over both of them. He stiffened. She didn't move away. You're freezing, she said. Shut up. Wish they sat like that, backs against the stall wall, blankets shared, surviving together. Not touching, except through wool, both crying silent, tears freezing on their faces. Dawn came slow and cold and clear. The storm ended. They woke tangled together under Margaret's blanket. And for the first time, neither pulled away. Bitter Creek learned about the storm 3 days later when Marshal Hatch organized a search party, not to rescue, but to reclaim. The snow stayed, 3 feet in the low places, 6 where the wind had pushed it. Roads were impassable. The world shrank to what you could see from your porch, and even that was white on white on white. Alma and Silas fell into a new rhythm, wordless mostly. Morning coffee at the table, both sitting now, both using their cups like shields. They worked the ranch together, feeding cattle, checking fences the snow had buried, keeping the windmill from freezing solid. At night, the lamplighting became a shared thing. She'd strike the match, he'd lift the glass. Neither spoke during it. Some rituals don't need words. The blanket stayed on the table between them, folded neat. Neither claimed it, both used it. 4 days after the storm, hoofbeats. Chief Running Bear, on his Appaloosa, the only man who could traverse snow this deep. He tied the horse, knocked once, entered without waiting. Marshal's coming, 3 days, maybe 4. Snow's melting on the south road. He looked at Silas, then Alma. Says you kidnapped property during storm. Says the law requires return or registration of claim. Silas's jaw worked. Won't register her like cattle. Then she goes back. No. Chief turned to Alma. I can take you north. Reservation. You'd be free there. Law don't reach past the boundary. You'd be under tribal protection. Alma's hands tightened on her cup. Real freedom. Actual freedom. Not dependent on Silas's conscience or the town's mercy. Just gone. How long before they come? She asked. 3 days, maybe 4 if the thaw's slow. She looked at Silas. He was staring at this table, jaw so tight she could see the muscle jumping. Then I got 3 days to decide. Chief nodded, pulled something from his coat, a small leather pouch, set it in front of her. Medicine. For strength, for when you need to be strong. He touched her shoulder once, the kind of touch that said, you matter, you are seen, then left. The door closed. The silence that followed was heavier than snow. Silas stood, walked to the window. He's right. You should go. Safer. What do you want? Don't matter what I want. It does to me. He turned. His face was carved from something old and tired. I want you to be free. Really free. Not stuck here because you feel obliged. Not staying because you think I need you. Free. What if I'm free here? He couldn't answer. Just looked at her like he was memorizing her face for when she was gone. That night, Alma couldn't sleep. The walls pressed in. The cabin felt like a question she didn't know how to answer. She pulled on the coat, his coat too big, and walked out into the cold. The mesa rose up against the stars. She knew, without being told, that's where Margaret was buried. Had known, since the first time she saw him look. That direction. Some griefs have geography. The walk took 20 minutes through snow that tried to pull her down with every step. At the top, the wind cut clean and sharp. Valley below, town in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys. Bitter Creek, the place that had sold her. The place that would take her back if given the chance. Behind her, the ranch, small, alone, one lamp burning in the window. She stood at the edge, between valley and sky, and let herself think. I could leave. Chief would protect me. Reservation ain't perfect, but it's free. Silas would let me go. Wouldn't chase me. Probably be relieved. One less thing to carry. But nobody asked me what I wanted since my husband died. Nobody cared if I was cold. Nobody gave me their daughter's blanket and expected nothing back. He's broken. So am I. Maybe broken people fix each other by standing next to each other. Not fixing, just standing. The wind picked up, sounded almost like breath, almost like words. She closed her eyes. Imagine Margaret standing there, 19, probably pretty, probably soft in ways Alma had never been allowed to be. What would you do? She asked the wind. In her mind, Margaret smiled, sad smile, knowing smile. I'd want my papa to have someone. He's so lonely. I ain't you. Good. He needs someone who'll fight. I was too gentle, too easy. Maybe that's why I couldn't hold on. You're not real. Does it matter? You're still here talking to me. Alma opened her eyes. The wind answered with a gust that nearly knocked her down. She steadied herself, looked at the valley again. All those people down there, with their laws, and their papers, and their certainty about who was property and who was person. I'm done running, she said out loud. I'm done being defined by who owns paper that says I'm a thing. The stars didn't answer, didn't need to. She walked back down. The cabin light was still burning. Silas was on the porch despite the cold, pacing. When he saw her, he stopped. Where needed to think. And? I'm staying. His face did something complicated. Relief and fear and something else she didn't have a name for. Alma, if they come, then they come. I'm done running. I'm done letting the law tell me who I am. She climbed the porch steps, stood in front of him. I'm staying, Kern. Not because you want me to. Because I want to. If I'm doing this out of guilt. If you're just my penance. Tell me now, she finished. I know. Long pause. So long she thought maybe he wouldn't answer. The windmill turned slow in the still air. Somewhere, a coyote called. Started that way, he said finally. Ain't that way anymore. Then what is it? Reckon it's choice. You choose to stay, I choose to stand with you. That's all it is. That's all it needs to be. She studied his face, saw the truth there. Saw the fear, too. Fear that she'd leave anyway. Fear that he'd fail again. Fear that 3 days from now, the marshal would take her and he'd watch another woman suffer and do nothing. I need you to understand something, she said. I ain't staying to fix you. I ain't staying because you need fixing. I'm staying because for the first time since Missouri, I get to choose. And I choose this. I choose here. He nodded. Understood, maybe. Or wanted to. She went inside. He followed. She lit the lamp, her turn, and he adjusted the wick. When she handed him the blanket, he took it. When he wrapped it around her shoulders, she let him. 3 days, she said. 3 days. Then we see what we're made of. Reckon we already know. She almost smiled. Almost. Outside, the snow started melting. Not fast, but steady. Winter loosening its grip. And somewhere on the south road, 15 men were saddling horses and checking rifles and preparing to ride north to take back what they believed was theirs. But for tonight, the lamp burned. The blanket was shared. And 2 broken people stood in a small cabin and chose each other, not out of need or guilt or desperation, but because sometimes choice is the only freedom that matters. They came at dawn with law on their side and judgment in their eyes. 15 men who believed mercy was another word for stealing. Alma saw the dust cloud first, stood at the window with coffee going cold in her hand, watching the horizon turn brown with horses, counted them as they got closer. 15, maybe more. Silas, he was at the table, already dressed, already knowing this was the day. He'd known since he woke, maybe before. I can still run, she said. You can. He stood, walked to the bedroom. But you don't have to. They'll take me. Law's on their side. Law's wrong. And he came back with the rifle. The one that hadn't been touched since Margaret died. Checked the chamber, loaded it slow and deliberate. Set it by the door. Alma's chest went tight. Don't. Please don't kill for me. Ain't for killing. He looked at her. For showing I'm serious. She set down the coffee. Pulled on Margaret's blue dress. Armor now, not ghost. Stood beside him at the door. You don't have to stand here, he said. Neither do you. I do. Then so do I. They walked out onto the porch together. The posse came into view. Marshal Hatch at the front on a gray mare, Reverend Pritchard beside him on a borrowed mule, 13 other men from town. All armed, all certain. They surrounded the cabin, horses stamping, leather creaking, wind carrying the smell of sweat and righteousness. Marshal Hatch looked down from his saddle. Silas Kern, you're harboring stolen property. Territory law says she returns to auction for proper registration, or you register claim and pay the restock fee. She ain't property. You bought her at legal auction. Bill of sale in my office says otherwise. She's yours to do with as you please. But if you won't use her, she goes back. Won't sell people like cattle. That's the law, Kern. Silas's hand moved to the rifle by the doorframe. Didn't pick it up, just touched it, let them see. Then law's a sin. Reverend Pritchard cleared his throat. Silas, think of your soul. Think of your standing in this community. This girl, she's nothing to you. Alma felt the words land. Nothing, like the auctions, like the brother-in-law, like every man who'd touched her and seen through her at the same time. She stepped forward. Silas's hand shot out, not grabbing, just there, ready to pull her back if this went wrong. I got a name. The men looked at her, some uncomfortable, some curious, some with that look she knew too well. It's Alma. Her voice shook but held. I had a husband, Thomas. He died protecting me from his brother. I had a home in Missouri, had a garden, had a life. His brother sold me to pay for land that should have been mine, said I was debt, said I was payment. Marshall shifted in his saddle. Girl, you got no legal standing. I'm human. The words came out louder now. Same as your daughters, same as your wives. You just decided I ain't because it's convenient, because you can profit from it, because you can sit in church Sunday and pretend you're good people. Silence. Heavy. Thick. Ma'am, one of the younger men said. Stopped. Didn't know what came next. Alma looked at each of them. You want to know what it's like? Standing on that platform with 40 men looking at you like you're cattle? Counting your teeth? Checking if you're broke enough to be cheap? Some looked away. This man, she pointed at Silas without turning. He gave me a choice. First one in 8 months. Barn or house, like I was a person who could choose. Then he gave me a room with a lock on the inside. Left the door to the barn, unlocked. Left supplies and expected nothing. Yeah, that's real touching, Marshall said. But law's law. You come with us or he registers you proper. Those are the options. Silas picked up the rifle. Didn't aim it, just held it. No. The rifle hung in his hands. Not pointed, not threatening, just there. You want her, you go through me. And when you do, you tell yourselves you killed a man for upholding a law that sells women like horses. You tell yourselves that at church Sunday. You tell your daughters that's what you did. No one moved. Tell them their papa rode out to drag a woman back to auction because the law said so. See if they look at you the same. Silence. The kind that settles like snow. Silas. Marshall's voice had lost some of its certainty. You're making a mistake. Town won't forgive this. Don't need the town to forgive me. Need to forgive myself. One of the younger ranchers, Miguel, from the Mexican families, lowered his rifle. I ain't shooting Kern. He's a good man. Miguel, Marshall started. No, senor, I won't do this. My wife, she was brought here the same way. Different name for it, but same wagon, same men looking. He turned his horse. I'm done. 2 others followed, then a 4th. Marshall's face went red. You're all cowards. No. The voice came from behind the posse, Mrs. Fenton on foot, having walked from town. They're human. Maybe you should try it. She walked through the horses, straight to the porch, looked at Alma. I'm sorry, she said, for charging extra, for looking away, for being scared. She turned to the posse. We go to church Sunday and pretend we're Christians. Then we do this on Wednesday. Can't be both. Jesus wouldn't bid at that auction, and we all know it. Reverend Pritchard opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Chief Running Bear appeared from the side of the cabin. Had been there the whole time, silent as stone. The Mesa witnesses, choose carefully what you do next. His presence changed something, made the choice real, made the consequences visible. Marshall looked at what was left of his posse. Half were looking at their hands. Half were looking at Alma like they'd never seen her before. Fine. He spat into the dirt. She stays, but you're done in this town, Kern. No credit, no buyers. No help when you need it. You just ruined yourself for a girl who ain't even yours. She ain't mine. That's the point. Marshall turned his horse. Let's go. Leave them to their righteousness. 8 men followed. 7 stayed, dismounting, looking at Silas like they were asking permission to be human. When the dust settled, Miguel approached. I'll buy your cattle, Senor Kern. Fair price, Mrs. Fenton nodded. Still sell to you, same prices as before. Chief put his hand on Silas's shoulder. Said nothing, didn't need to. The others dispersed. Some to town, some to help with fences the snow had broken. The canyon had fractured. Half the town with the marshal's judgment. Half with something that might be conscience. Alma and Silas stood on the porch long after everyone left. The sun climbed higher, the snow kept melting. The windmill turned slow and steady. Why? She finally asked. He took a long time answering. Because you were cold, because you were scared, because I wasn't there for Margaret. But I'm here for you, and that's still guilt. Maybe. He looked at her. But it's also choice. I choose mercy. I choose you being free. Even if it costs everything. She nodded. Understood, finally. You didn't save me. We saved each other. Yeah. Town won't forget. No. They'll make it hard. Probably. Was it worth it? He looked at her for a long moment. At the dress she wore that used to be Margaret's. At the strength in her eyes that Margaret never had. At the woman standing beside him by choice, not obligation. Yeah, it was. They stayed on that porch until sunset, neither speaking, both knowing the world had shifted under them and wouldn't shift back. But sometimes the right choice is the hard one, and sometimes freedom costs everything, and sometimes 2 broken people can stand together and choose mercy when the whole world chooses law, and that has to be enough. Winter stayed 6 weeks that year, long enough to bury old grief and grow something new. Snow melted slow. By late January, the mesas showed brown again, and the first wildflowers pushed through where the drifts had been deepest. The world remembered how to be green. Alma sat in Margaret's rocking chair now. Silas had uncovered it one morning without a word. and she'd sat down without asking. The blanket was draped over the back. She'd mended the frayed edge herself, her stitches rough next to Margaret's careful ones. 2 hands, 2 women, 1 inheritance. Morning ritual. She lit the lamp now while he watched. Evening ritual. They sat on the porch until the stars came, blanket around both their shoulders, neither needing to fill the silence. Chief Running Bear came one last time. Brought wildflowers, desert marigold bright yellow against his weathered hands, walked to the mesa alone, placed them on Margaret's grave. When he returned, he stood before them both. The mesa has seen your winter. It approves. To Silas, your daughter rests easy now. To Alma, you are no longer property of men. You are daughter of the mesa. And he spoke in Apache, a blessing Alma didn't understand but felt. Then in English, may you walk in beauty. He left without looking back. Some goodbyes don't need lingering. That evening, they sat on the porch. Alma's bare feet on the worn boards. Third rail from the left had a knot, like the auction floor, but this knot was hers. Chosen. Home. Town's still split, she said. Yeah. Half of them hate us. Probably. Was it worth it? Silas looked at her. At the woman who'd survived auction blocks and snowstorms, and her own decision to stay. At the strength she'd built from nothing. Yeah. She smiled. Small. Real. You know what Mrs. Fenton told me yesterday? What? She said you bought me to set me free. That sounds right. Is it? Reckon I bought you because I was lost. And maybe we found each other by choosing to stand still. The windmill turned lazy in the evening breeze, not squeaking anymore. He'd oiled it last week, though he'd never say why. Thank you, she said. For what? Asking barn or house. Nobody'd asked me nothing for so long, I forgot I could answer. He took her hand. First time, she didn't pull away. The blanket around them both, the lamp burning inside. The stars coming out like promises. And 2 people who'd been property and guilt and ghosts choosing instead to be human. Some men buy women to own them. He bought her to ask her name.